Ladies and gentlemen, today on the opposition side, Bernardo has already presented two arguments. How the pollution quota trading doesn't avoid true pollution, doesn't avoid a true decrease in pollution, and how the stronger taxes and such will actually lead to a better, cleaner future and not this solution. I'm going to talk about how emissions aren't a global issue and how when you break it, you buy it. But first, I'd like to rebut some points that the proposition is given us. First of all, on the opposition side, we have found a very large problem with one point the proposition said about developing countries. That they said that poor countries will be able to sell their extra emission quotas at a price. Ladies and gentlemen, I find three big problems with this. First of all, this automatically suggests that there's a problem with the proposition's proposition. Because if they have so much extra quotas that they're able to sell, it means that they were given quotas that were too large in the first place, which means that there isn't actually much environmental gain. So no thank you. So and if there's no environmental gain, then what are we doing? Nothing. Second of all, another problem that could arise is that developing countries could try and compromise between developing their industries or selling their quotas. Well, this is going to lead to two problems, ladies and gentlemen. Because first of all, the governments of developing countries could either sell the quotas, in which case the government would receive this extra money, or the industry of the country, which means the industry of the country will lose it. Or what else will happen? On the long run, if developing countries do choose to follow this path of compromising between, instead of developing their industry, just selling their extra quota points, what's going to happen on the long run? Developing countries are going to have less industry. And ladies and gentlemen, this isn't going to happen. No, thank you. And third of all, supposing that these other two problems were non-existent, it's still not going to be a great salvation for the economy of developing nations. Because, ladies and gentlemen, remember, this is a global market. You're talking about trading global environmental quotas. So what does this mean? That the quotas aren't going to be selling too much. Bernardo already said $12 a ton. It's not like it's going to save the poor countries, because they're going to be competing with every other poor country that you said would have extra resources.
On the point there.
Nothing. Another thing he talked about was the acid rain in the United States. The acid in 1990, the Clean Air Act. Well, you said it decreased 50%. Yes, it decreased it locally in the United States, and this is where the opposition finds a great problem. I'm going to go on to later about how it's not a global issue, but in short, this only will work locally, and I'll tell you why later. Another thing is that you said that taxes weren't an incentive, but we never said they were. We said that they're a deterrent. You said we don't live in a perfect world where people will want to do things on their own, and we agree. That is why we have these taxes. And what we say is that these taxes are simply not high enough.
Well,
and you said that the United States of America wouldn't pay tax. Well, currently, ladies and gentlemen, the United States is one of the countries that hasn't signed the Kyoto Protocol, which is in fact implementing this international system of trading quotas. So if you said the United States won't pay our tax, why on earth then would it follow your trade protocols? No, thank you. Protocols. Finally, you talked about compensation. And I pose this question to you. Will Japan be compensated for the increased sulfur emissions by China, which caused acid rain not only in China, but in Japan? Remember, of course, because China legally bought an extra emissions quota, so that's okay, is it? Now, on to my substantive material. First of all, emissions aren't a global issue. Scientifically speaking, certain pollution only affects certain areas or certain regions, such as ozone depletion in Australia, which, if you don't know what ozone depletion is, it's basically that there's too much, there's too much chemicals going into the ozone, which is increasing the rate of reaction, which is making a hole in the ozone layer, which is allowing more dangerous sunlight to come in, which is bad for us. And this is only affecting certain regions of the globe. It's not affecting. So if some place increases its emissions, it's going to affect. Another place where this is, which I already said, was China. China has a massive acid rain problem. The sulfur emissions that China gives out due to its various industries is massive. And this causes acid rain. But it doesn't only cause acid rain for China, ladies and gentlemen. No, it causes acid rain for Japan and Russia and all the other countries that are near China. Yes.
If you're telling us that it affects Australia and Japan, even if they are not the ones who are making the harm, how is it that your argument is called that it is not a global problem?
Exactly. Look, it's because it's not. Because what you're trying to do is that what you're saying is that fixing emissions in Japan or in Ireland or whatever isn't going to fix emissions. Isn't going to help China. Or is going to help China, but it's not. On your side, you're saying that globally it doesn't matter, that because whereas some people will use more, perhaps emit more, some people will emit less. But what we're saying is that we don't want anyone to emit more. We want everyone to emit only what they're allowed, which is in the case of China. Because when China goes overboard, it's affecting everybody else.
On that point, sir.
Secondly, you break it, you buy it. What's going to happen when I buy quotas from you I'm going to push myself harder to use up that quota, because once I've bought it, I'm not going to waste that valuable money. No. What's going to happen is countries who buy quotas are going to just keep on going, and slowly.
That's point.
And slowly, they're not going to care at all. They're just going to care about filling the quotas they've bought, which means that no one's altruistic enough to just say, oh, no thank you. Oh, I've got an extra quota, I'm not going to stop producing harmful substances for the environment. No, nothing. Socially, each nation has to develop a moral code. Your pollution system of trading is just a cop-out, because when someone decreases their emissions, it's not going to be for the good of the world. No, people are going to just decrease for money. And this is unacceptable, ladies and gentlemen, because it is up to the states to learn morally and not adopt attitudes of we're under a quota, so why should we change? Because if people are under the quota, they're not going to be forced to change environmentally. And second of all, they can adopt attitudes of if we're near a quota, we'll just buy more, so why change? So for these are the reasons, ladies and gentlemen, that pollution quota trading is not a true solution, and how stronger deterrents are actually more effective, and how emissions are not a global issue, but more a locally solved issue, and if you break it, you buy it. It is for these reasons, ladies and gentlemen, that we believe that you should oppose this motion. Thank you.